Hello everyone, so we will continue with the Vidui Halacha V'Ra'ayon. Just I would like again to dedicate this shiur for the entire semester. לעילוי נשמת מנחם מנדל בן אברהם מאיר וטויבה רבקה זיכרונם לברכה וצביה חיה בת אריה לב וחווה אידה זיכרונם לברכה, Mel and Sylvia David by their family, so should be לעילוי נשמה. Okay, so we completed first part of the shiur last week regarding the halachic ramifications of the Vidui and the idea of the Ramban dealing with the idea of Tfilah Zakah. Not that the Ramban spoke about Tfilah Zakah, he talked about another Vidui. Tfilah Zakah really was composed probably by the Chayei Adam. Okay, so that's 19th century, so 19th century, so that's not that ancient, that old. We picked up on it and then we somehow attached it to the Vidui. So now what I would like to do is to talk about Ikaro shel Vidui. So we are on page 3. There are no numbers, so don't look for numbers. So not the first one, not the second one, it's the third one. Okay, so what is Ikaro shel Vidui? Which means what's the main essence of the Vidui? And the Gemara says like that. Talmud in Yoma, Daf Pei Zayin Amud Bet. May Amar. So what do you say in the Vidui? Amar Rav, Ata Yodea Razei Olam. You, God, you know all the secrets, you know all the mysteries, you know everything that it's sealed, you know everything. Which means almost like an acknowledgement that what? I can't hide. Okay. Ushmuel Amar, Mima'amakei Halev, from the depth of my heart. Which we are not that familiar with it. Ata Yodea Razei Olam, we know that's the tefillah that we say in Vidui, really almost at the beginning of the Vidui. And Shmuel Amar Mima'amakei Halev. ולוי אמר, ובתורתך כתוב לאמור. רבי יוחנן אמר, ריבון העולמים, master of all universe. רבי יהודה אומר, כי עוונותינו רבו מלמנות, our sins are too great, too many to count, וחטאותינו עצמו מספר, and our transgressions are also too great to count. רב אמנונה אמר, אלוקיי, עד שלא נוצרתי, איני כדאי. God, before I was born, I was not worthy to be born. עכשיו שנוצרתי, but now when I'm born, or I was created, כאילו לא נוצרתי. עפר אני בחיי, קל וחומר במיתתי, I'm just dust and ashes in my life, even more so when I die. הרי אני לפניך, so I'm in front of you, ככלי מלא, בושה וכלימה, like a vessel, which is basically I'm filled with what? With shame and embarrassment. יהי רצון מלפניך שלא יחטא, please God, make it that I will not sin, ומה שחטאתי, and whatever I already transgressed, מרוק ברחמך, meaning erase with your compassion, אבל לא על ידי ייסורים. But please God, don't send any afflictions to me, but just rather help me to erase it by your compassion. והיינו וידויה דרבה כולה שתה. And that's what the vidui that Rava had all year long. ודרב אמנונה זוטה ביום הדקיפורי. And what Rav Amnuna suggested, he said it on Yom Kippur. אמר מר זוטרא, לא אמרן, אלא דלא אמר, אבל אנחנו חטאנו. אבל אנחנו חטאנו, to לא צריך. The main essence, you can say whatever you want in a way. There are so many different variations for a vidui, but the main point or the main essence, and if without that you didn't say vidui, is what? אבל אנחנו חטאנו. You know, it's very hard, it's very easy to hide behind nice words. Okay? אתה יודע רזי עולם, you God know everything, you are so great, but what you don't say? I committed a sin. Okay? So somewhat you are missing the point. Vidui is the idea of confession is what? Say it. Say it. You need to say, I committed a sin. Yes? Okay, we will talk about the plurality aspect of Vidui, but that's a little bit later on. De'amar bar Amdudi, have kaimna kamed Shmuel, I was in front of Shmuel, ve'have yativ, and he said, bechimat ashlicha de tzibura ve'amar, aval anachnu chatanu, you already have an answer. When the shliach tzibur says anachnu in terms of, he's the representative of the community, kam meikam, Shmuel stood up, amar shma mina ikar vidui, which means if Shmuel stand up, that means what? That's the main essence of Vidui. So the main essence of Vidui, Michael, I'll take you in a minute. The main essence of Vidui is what? is אבל אנחנו חטאנו. Yes.
Just noted a very interesting change in the nusach that we say in the Ashkenazi Machzor, Merol, instead of Machol.
נכון. Right. So that's, by the way. נכון.
Is there other nusachim?
Yes, there are many, but that will be probably a different shiur. What's the difference between מירוק ומחיקה וכפרה? Okay? יש לנו מחה לנו, כפר לנו, סלח לנו. There are so many different variations of, seems to be the same thing, but it's not. Okay. So that's עיקרו של וידוי. The idea, the recognition, the internalization of what? חטאנו. חטאנו. Okay. Now, this one is complicated. So I'm just giving you a heads up. It's not that complicated. We're just going to make it complicated and then we will resolve it. Okay? So, okay. Do you need to detail the sins, A, and B, do you need to continue or to basically to return to the sins that you did last year but you didn't do, let's say, this year? Do you still need to include them in the vidui? The what? How do you remember? Preparation for Chagim. Make lists. There are certain things that you probably remember. Yeah, but so you are sure you basically erase them and they're okay. So why not to say them? Meaning the fact that you didn't do them does not mean that you already erased them. Or maybe you are correct. If I didn't do them, that's the main point of confession. I'm not going to do it again. So if I didn't, so why should I go back? As you can understand, there is tremendous amount of psychology here.
But you say it as a group, so even if it doesn't concern you, you're still part of that. And maybe if you did it, you kind of are saying that.
It might. By the way, I don't know if you ever saw the list. Sometimes some Mahzorim have a list under every Irur Alev, whatever. So there is a list. Do you read that list? Now, some of you read the list. Okay, what do you think? Like there are like say 10 examples for everything. When I look at these 10 things, what do you have in mind? Did you do any of them? One of them?
So many of them, so many.
Right, and many of them we didn't do, and many of them we probably did, right? Or at least some of them. But it's very interesting because many of the things on the list is like, what? I never did it, or at least I don't think I did it. And it's a little hard to remember if you did that or not. So it's a call probably for mindfulness and some kind of recollections before Yom Kippur, but we will get there. Don't. All right, so that's what Marcy suggested. Basically, it says even if you didn't do it, someone else did it. So we come as a collective. Yeah, it also might be that it's not the sin itself. It's like okay, it might be. But let's see. Let's start. Really, we should see the source.
Very successful, and then something happened to him, and he can't admit it. So he keeps going into, doesn't look at help, or he gets, very.
Right. No, that's correct. What Naftali is suggesting, he says, sometimes, if you don't start with the recognition of the sin, you will not be able to elevate yourself. You will not be able to solve it. Right.
Something happened, and you have in some way to test them.
Right. Not to recognize the sin.
Somewhere you get into like groups and talk it out, and not be afraid to talk about it.
Right.
Didn't want to talk about it. That's where the problem is.
Right. Correct. That's true. Yeah. Basically, he says that sometimes it's very hard, especially for successful people, when they fail, it's very hard for them to recognize the failure. But when there is a group, so it might help them because they are not by themselves, and B, in a way they can not hide, but they can. The participation with the collective helps them to also reveal what they need to reveal. Okay, good. So take a look at the Gemara in Yoma. תנו רבנן. עבירות שהתוודע עליהם יום הכיפורים זה, לא יתוודע עליהן יום הכיפורים אחר. So, the sins that you confess on them this year, you don't need to repeat them next year. However, ואם שנה בהן, but if you did them again, צריך להתוודות יום כיפור אחד. So obviously what? You need to confess on them this year. ואם לא שנה בהן, but if you didn't do them, וחזר והתוודה עליהן, and you repeated a confession on them, עליו הכתוב אומר, ככלב שב על קיאו, כסיל שונה באיוולתו. Which means, according to the first opinion, don't worry, there are many other opinions. First opinion says what? I committed a sin last year, I confessed. This year I didn't do it. And on Yom Kippur I continue to confess for that sin that I didn't do this year. It's like a dog who goes back to his spit, and like an unsophisticated person who goes back to his stupidity. Which means, why would you do it to yourself? Why would you confess on a sin that you didn't do this year? It's like you are missing it. Like you want to remind yourself that you did it once. Don't. Just really cut. You didn't do it? Baruch Hashem. Move on. Don't say it. That's the first opinion. That's the first opinion. First opinion. Let's just try to get some opinions together, and then we will open it up for discussion, I promise. And I also promise I'm going to ignore all the hands, so don't raise them. I will stop, and then we can have a discussion. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov אומר, כל שכן הוא משובח. Exactly the opposite. You should praise that person who repeat confession on sins even if he or she didn't do them. Why? שנאמר, כי פשעי אני אדע וחטאתי נגדי תמיד. David HaMelech says, I know my sins, I know my transgressions, וחטאתי, and my sin, נגדי תמיד. It's always in front of me, so I will never forget it. Even if I'm not going to do it, that's in a way a deterrent not to do it. Exactly the opposite. You should be praised by doing that. You see the gamut of the gap between first opinion and second opinion. We'll talk about it in a minute or two. אלא מה אני מקיים ככלב ששב על קיאו? So according to this opinion, what would he do? Read the pasuk like a dog who goes back to his spit, like the first opinion. כדרב הונא, דאמר רב הונא, כיוון שעבר אדם עבירה ושנה בה הותרה לו, סל כדעתך, אלא אימה נעשית לו כהיתר. Meaning, he says, what does it mean like a dog that goes back to his spit? Is that if you do a sin, if you commit a sin, and then you commit it again, and then you commit it again, you think that is what? It's mutar. Not that it's really mutar, but for you, it's not a sin anymore. Yeah, you get used to it. And when you get used to it, כזה נורא. Okay. Before we open for questions, let's just try to structure something. According to the first opinion, you should not repeat confession on sins that you didn't do. Second opinion says exactly the opposite. You should, and that's what David HaMelech says. Now, when we look at such a debate, we obviously there is a halachic ramification. Do you do it or not? So if I'm the rabbi and you come to ask me, Rabbi, I didn't do this sin, should I confess it or not? So I need to make a decision here halachically. But leave the halacha for a second. Let's talk about the machshava behind it. According to the first opinion, in a way, when I look at the past, if I didn't do something, why would you want to go back to the past? It happened, you confessed, you learned your lessons. Enough. Move on. Cut it. Because if not, it can what? It can sink you. It can basically bring you back to where you were before. So we don't want it. We want to what? To cut what you are now to what you were before. The second opinion says, no, exactly the opposite. Carry the past with you in order to what? To help you to guarantee not to do it again. Now, what's the risk? The risk is that can sink you. What's the risk with the first opinion? That you would think, I didn't do it this year, so I'll forget about it. And then the next year you're going to what? To do it again, because there is nothing to deter you from doing it. A. B. We can also think about the psychological component of what? Of what I will call tshuva, if you are really sincere with tshuva, there is definitely a risk of depression. Because depression, yeah. Or in Hebrew, depressia. And why? Because you look at yourself and say, I cannot believe that that's what I did. And if that's what I did, who am I to what? To do tshuva. I'm not worthy of it. Which means it can take you really, really down. On the other hand, in psychology, exactly the opposite. Confront your past, overcome it, and show yourself that what? That you can do it. This is a subjective thing. This is not something that I can give you a formula, okay, take it 3 times a day and you'll be fine. Every person has his or her unique DNA. And I'm not going to, but I can have a survey here. How do you deal with the past? And each one of you will come probably with a different way. Yeah, there will going to be some commonality, but there is going to be a unique way of dealing with the past. So therefore, there are other possibilities to explain this machloket, but we understand that this machloket, it's not only about halacha, to repeat it or not, but it's really about what? The nature of tshuva and the process of tshuva. Okay, now open for questions or comments. Yes?
I think that as humans, we can never feel that we've totally overcome something.
And
so we have to go with the second one.
okay, so Susie suggests, well, let's go with the second one. It makes sense. Why? Because you always need some kind of a reminder. Okay, because if not, we know ourselves. We'll go back. Yes?
When we tshuva last year, or very big the previous year, and did not repeat it, okay, then it's understood that you got kapara because you're here this year. You got kapara from what you mavadel last year, and so you might be kofar in the kapara by bringing it up.
I will need to take a side. And I have no guarantees that the fact that we are here this year is because we had kapara for that sins or not. It might be for so many different things. I cannot make those calculations. I'm not rejecting it. It might work. I cannot do that. Meaning I cannot accept it for myself. I'm not saying maybe others yes. I cannot make this. I don't know. You have people who are still alive even though they committed more sins this year than last year. Why? Yes.
I just remember saying these things when I was a teenager. And I said, why am I saying it? I don't even come close to doing most of it. But possibly is that like a warning? You're saying it as a kind of reminder or an instruction, don't do it.
So that's very close to what Susie says. Let's just make it like constant reminders. Very good. Yes.
I just heard a share last week, maybe it was here, that even if you do tshuva for the sin, it still affects you. What you did affects your personality, your character, and it stays with you. And yeah, you have to continue to accomplish it.
Okay, everyone likes the second opinion, I see. But I'll take it in a second. Just a second. It might be that there is kapara for one thing, but every sin is multi-layer, which means there are the layers that are revealed, and then there are other layers, right? It might be that you did something and you think no one saw it, but someone saw it. And he was affected because he looked at you and says, oh, he's a big rabbi. If he does it, I can do that, right? And he says it to another friend. Now you have no idea. Meaning there are some things that we are not even aware. And therefore, and also, more you learn, now you know that the sin that you did might go even deeper than you thought last year, right? So it's not only as a reminder, but it's like to try to achieve atonement for, let's call it the deeper layers of the sin. Okay? מההתחלה.
Answers the first opinion that becomes the student who did it. Kirill didn't repeat it, that I didn't. I think I won't repeat, but it actually came inside.
Okay. Sometimes, you're repeating a sin that you didn't even know that it was. Okay, that's another possibility. Yes?
The question.
No, it's not a question, it was a comment. the comment was that maybe because you did it so many times, you don't even know that it is a sin, and then you recognize it was a sin. Yes.
I would just say that there are so many things that we think doesn't affect us, but as humans, we always potential to do. We really don't know ourselves well enough. Therefore, we have to be doing on what I've done personally, but always conscious of the humanity. It's the wrong word. Humanness.
Meaning, you are saying that. I think, if I understand you correctly, I think you're talking a little bit more about the what? If I understood you correctly, so please correct me, is that basically, I mean, I think you took a little bit to a different path, which means I should say even sins that I didn't do, because the human condition is such that maybe I can do them. So in a way, it's like a no, what do you call it? A preemptive. It's a preemptive confession, meaning I'm already confessing for things that maybe I didn't do them, but I am definitely capable of doing it. Okay, thanks. So I understood. So, as you can see, we can definitely spend an hour now trying to get these two opinions straight, but let's continue. So we have some kind of an idea of what's going on between these two opinions. Now, a second part of the Vidui. So first we spoke about what's the main essence of Vidui, Chatan. Then we spoke about what should you say? Should you repeat sins that you didn't do, or no? Now, what about detailing? To say all the details of the sin. Should you say all the details, or you should say it in general? Okay. וצריך לפרוט החטא. According to one opinion, you need to what? Not just to say, I didn't have kavanah in tefillah, but mamish details. How do we know? שנאמר, ענה חטא העם הזה חטאה גדולה, ויעשו להם אלוהי זהב. דברי רבי יהודה בן בבא. Not the pasuk is Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava. Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava is quoting the pasuk that Moshe Rabbeinu says, ענה חטא העם הזה חטאה גדולה. This nation committed a grievous sin, a tremendous sin. And what is the sin? עשו להם עגל מסכה. They committed for themselves a golden calf. Right? So, that's Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava. Rabbi Akiva אומר, אשרי נשוי פשע, כסוי חטאה. Which means what? Praiseworthy is the person who what? He covers the sin. He does not want to what? To share too much. He doesn't want to what? To detail the sin. אלא מהו שאמר משה ויעשו להם אלוהי זהב? So what does it mean? The pasuk says, ענה חטא העם הזה חטאה גדולה, general, and then עשו להם אלוהי זהב. Right? The detail. So what Rabbi Akiva is going to do with that? כדי רבי ינאי. אמר רבי ינאי, אמר משה לפני הקדוש ברוך הוא, ריבונו של עולם, Moshe says to Hashem, Master of the world, כסף וזהב שהרבית עליהם לישראל אשר אמרו די, גרם להם שיעשו אלוהי זהב. What does it mean that it says in the pasuk, ויעשו להם אלוהי זהב? In a way, Moshe is blaming God. You gave them too much gold?
Justification.
Exactly. So it's not anything about the detailing of the sin. It's just about Moshe is trying to what? To help out Am Yisrael and to justify what they did. Or at least to blame someone else. And then he says, שני פרנסים טובים עמדו להם לישראל, משה ודוד. משה אמר, יכתב סורחני, שנאמר, יען לא האמנתם בי להקדישני. דוד אמר, אל יכתב סורחני, שנאמר, אשרי נשוי פשע כסוי חטאה. So now the Gemara is bringing two biblical figures, and basically says, one of them says, please mention my sin in detail, and one says, please don't. Moshe says, please detail my sin, so everyone would know exactly why I was not allowed to go into the land of Israel. David says, don't. Please don't say anything about what? What I did. Why one would say yes, the other one would say no. So the Gemara says like that. משל דמשה ודוד למה הדבר דומה. So we have a parable. Parable for what? לשתי נשים שלקו בבית דין. אחת קלקלה ואחת אכלה פגי שביעית. So two women are being brought to Beit Din, and both of them are being judged. One, kilkela, she had an affair, and the one just ate fruits from the shvi'it that she was not allowed to. So obviously you understand, minuscule sin versus what? Major. אמרה להן אותה שאכלה פגי שביעית, בבקשה, בבקשה מכם, הודיעו על מה היא לוקה. שלא יאמרו על מה שזו לוקה, זו לוקה. הביאו פגי שביעית ותלו בצווארה, והיו מכריזין לפניה ואומרים, על עסקי שביעית היא לוקה. Which means, the one who ate the fruits from the shvi'it says, please, let everyone know why I'm being judged. I don't want them to think that I had an affair, right? So what did they do? They put fruits from figs from the shvi'it, and they put it as a necklace, so now everyone knows that what? That she is the one that ate the fruits of shvi'it. The other one, on the other hand, that was not only shvi'it, okay? That was something much more severe. So now, take a look at Moshe and David. דוד המלך, אשרי נשוי פשע, כסוי חטאה. He had some little bit of a pekale, okay, that he said, you know what, maybe I should try to suppress it and to hide it. Moshe Rabbeinu says, I want everyone to know why I was judged. יען לא האמנתם בי להקדישני, right, with a מי מריבה. So the idea is that it become now somewhat subjective. Now, if we talk about the second part of the Gemara, which is really, should you say the sin in detail? So on one hand, we can say, if we say that the main essence of Vidui is chatanu, that I confess that I committed the sin, say what was the sin, right? Don't say it in general. How is that going to help you in the process of tshuva, right? If you don't really, by this, okay, I guess all of us is, I guess everyone besides me, it's grandchildren, okay? But you remember as parents, a child come and you caught him doing something, and then he comes, he or she, whatever, says, slicha. What is one of the first reactions of parents? What do you apologize for? Right? Oh, you know what? Husband and wife. When a husband says to his wife, sorry, right? What? No, leave the flowers is the obvious. But the first thing that the wife asks is, what for? Right? Or, just in case, the husbands mostly, when they wake up in the morning, they immediately say, why? What? Sorry for the day. Right? So you say it in advance. So the thing is what? Ma, no? So, that's not that terrible, believe me. So, what do we have here? You want to ask the person who asks for forgiveness, what's for? Tell me. Because you can say, oh, I'm just sorry that I made you upset, but I want you to go through the process so you know what was wrong, right? So this is a way like an aleph bet, it's like an ABC of confession. How can I understand that you shouldn't say it in details? So, we also know that in any process, there is always the details, and then there is the big picture. Sometimes when people are so immersed with the small details, they don't see the big picture. As you can see, the entire process of confession is very similar to almost every other process. Do you want people to be bogged down to the details of the details of the details of the details, and then they will not really see the big picture? Or they will be so embarrassed, so they will not be able to go through the next stage. Or you tell the people, yes, that's the process. If you really, really want to have a full tshuva, complete, wholesome tshuva, you need to go through all the details. Yes?
I understand the David emotion. David said in an Aleph, he wrote to Hillel. And in an Aleph, he talks about his hate. And Moshe, do you ever see him saying the words Chatan? I don't know. Did you ever say Chatati?
No.
So why are you saying that David wants to not have the details? That's what I understand.
I'll give you an example from his son. The question was, why would David HaMelech himself says Chatati, right? So he says Chatati. By the way, when he said Chatati, he didn't know it would be written in Tanakh.
But he wrote it down.
The what? Oh, so he wrote Tehillim, and in Tehillim he says, Chatati negdi tamid, right? But it's negdi. For me, not for others. Now, everyone knows what he did, obviously. But he says, Chatati negdi tamid, dafka. From there they learn, don't say it in public. Don't say the details, just for you, וזהו. Now, with Shlomo HaMelech, after Shlomo died, the Tanakh says the following: ולא היה לבבו שלם כלבב דוד אביו, בדבר הנשים. Okay? That his heart was not as wholesome as his father, because of the women and everything. The Gemara in Shabbat says the following: Amar Shlomo. Now, Shlomo didn't say that because he already died, but the Gemara assumed that that's what Shlomo would say. He would prefer to be a menake bivin, which means to clean gutters, if I'm not mistaken. Sewers, thank you. Then, the mamash tzures, right? To clean bivim, biyuv, and that the Tanakh would not say on him that his heart was not as wholesome as his father's heart. Which means the eternality? There's no word like that. There's no word like that.
Terminology?
No, eternal. Eternity. Okay, I thought that eternality would be a nice word. Maybe we should make it up. But the idea of what we call in Hebrew nitzchiyut, meaning every child is going to read Tanakh and is going to see that what? Shlomo HaMelech, who built the Beit HaMikdash and was called Yedid Hashem, Yedidyah, and had so much potential, he ended his life with what? His heart was not as David's heart. Lo haya shalem. So the idea is, in a way, David HaMelech says, Chatati negdi tamid, let me deal with you, God. And Moshe says, no, I want everyone to know why I was punished. Why? Because I don't want people to try to associate other sins to me. Such as, now you will be surprised, but this is an incredible midrash. The midrash says, you remember after the Chet HaEgel, Moshe pitched his tent somewhere else, right? So everyone who needed to ask a question had to go what? To Moshe Rabbeinu. So it says, I'll give you two midrashim. והביטו אחרי משה עד בואו האוהלה. So they watched Moshe after he left the camp and he went to the tent, right? So the Yerushalmi brings two opinions. First opinion is that they looked at Moshe and they said, wow, look at this. A human being, and see what he can accomplish spiritually. I wish that my kids would be like him. That sounds right? Wonderful, right? You want to hear the second opinion? Second opinion is, he gained some weight. He eats well. Nice pants. He gets paid well. See, the religious business is pretty good. He is making money on us. He's stealing from us. The same person who gave a detailed report financially after the Mishkan to the last penny, he was blamed or accused by taking away from Am Yisrael. A. B. Some men were suspicious that Moshe, God forbid, has an affair with their wives. Why? Because their wives had to leave the camp and to go to his tent. That's the extent of people, okay? With Moshe Rabbeinu. So the idea is that Moshe Rabbeinu says what? I want that to be very clear. I was not allowed to go to the land of Israel because of one sin I did. Which was what? hit the rock in the left, whatever the sin was, okay? I will say that even though, the sin is pretty clear, quote unquote, the Parshanim, I think, provide with 6 or 8 options of what exactly was the sin. Okay, so look, it's always like that. When you don't say specific things, you leave things to imagination. And with imagination, Baruch Hashem. It's very similar to what? To Aaron's children. How many interpretations do you remember for Nadav and Avihu?
So why wasn't it?
To what?
Why wasn't it made more clear?
With whom? With
Moshe and
No, so with Moshe, it is pretty clear that you need to find whatever you're going to find, but it's going to be in one place. Don't look at any other places that Moshe had some kind of a problem, quote unquote, with God.
Say that it was because he killed him in Mitzrayim. I mean,
Right.
you're gonna be.
Agree, but if you look on your narrative, the narrative is, if you would ask, someone who just read the narrative, why is it that Moshe Rabbeinu was not able to go into the land of Israel? They will not start with, like Rashi says, Ata tiret asher eseh lefaro, Ata, and not after. Okay, they will go with wherever it says you can go into the land of Israel. Okay, let's take a look at the Rif. Okay, so I'm skipping Rashi. Rif, it's Rabbi Yitzchak El-Fassi. That's the 11th century. And what the Rif did, the Rif basically took the Gemarot and tried to, as much as he could, to minimize the Masa Umatan B'Gemara, the negotiation in the Gemara, and to try to find halachot from the Gemara. Amar Rav Yehuda, Rav Ra Miktiv. So Rav brought 2 psukim and made a contradiction and then tried to resolve them. כתיב מכסה פשעיו לא יצליח. וכתיב אשרי נשוי פשע כסוי חטאה. There are 2 psukim. One says what? מכסה פשעיו לא יצליח. If you hide your sins, you will not be able to be successful, which means successful, I guess, in doing repentance, doing tshuva. וכתיב אשרי נשוי פשע כסוי חטאה. Praiseworthy is the person who what? Who cover his sins. So no, אז תחליט. You're saying cover the sins is terrible, then you say cover the sins, you are praiseworthy. לא קשה. כאן בעבירות שבין אדם למקום, כאן בעבירות שבין אדם לחברו. Which means what? It's confusing. We have 2 psukim. One says hide your sins, the other one says don't hide your sins. Now we say, the way to resolve it is sins between you and God and sins between you and a friend. Oh, yeah, which is which? Now I can come up with a theory for both. Right? When you say stand in front of God, don't hide anything. Why don't you hide anything? Why? Even if you hide, He knows it all. So if you come to confess to God, so say it, just say it. With your friend, you don't want to tell your friend. It's better, I guess, to tell your friend, look, I spoke Lashon Hara about you this year. And you hope that your friend is not going to ask you what, when, what, how frequent. You don't want to tell him it was almost every 3 hours, right? It's you don't want to say it because then you're going to get him even more upset, right? Or alternatively, exactly the opposite. In front of God, I don't need to say anything. Why? Because He knows. But if I really want a tshuva shlema, not like, it's wonderful minhag that, before Yom Kippur, everyone, mitztaer im pagati becha. It defeats the purpose. I apologize if I hurt you. It's nice, but it doesn't make it, right? You need to tell your friend, look, I spoke about you Lashon Hara, 10 times a day for the last 365 days. Maybe I took a break on Yom Kippur last year, but it just didn't work well, and I'm sorry. And I even spoke about you in front of Moshe and Miriam and Ruti and whatever. And
more about the repercussions. If you tell your friend certain the repercussions of what you tell him.
Yeah, he might say to you, if that's the case, forget it. Right? I'm not giving you forgiveness.
Even now, so you said my wife, now,
right.
Now, what happens in relation to my wife?
נכון. It can be other complete. By the way, talking about that, I think I brought it here once, or maybe not here, but this is one of the most famous tshuvot of the Noda B'Yehuda, Rabbi Cheskel Landa, like 300 and something years ago. So it's a terrible question. Back then, 300 years ago, yeshiva guys would not have a dorm. They would stay with families. This yeshiva guy had an affair with the mother, like the mother of the house, like the balabuste, okay? While he was in yeshiva. Then, after 2-3 years, he's getting engaged with the daughter.
Oh.
You don't know that question? Oh my gosh, that's one of the most terrible questions. Rega, but I didn't tell you the question yet. I'm just describing you the case. I get to see that you are already excited. So this yeshiva guy goes to the rabbi, to the Rosh Yeshiva, and his question to the Rosh Yeshiva is, there are two questions. Really, he asked the Rosh Yeshiva, and then he asked the Noda B'Yehuda. He says to him, A, what's the process of tshuva that I need to do? B, should I tell my father-in-law? Should I tell my father-in-law that I had an affair with my mother-in-law, that she was not my mother-in-law yet, but she is now my mother-in-law? And should I tell my father-in-law? I don't know exactly how that conversation should look like, that he didn't ask the Noda B'Yehuda. But you understand that it's complicated. Also, halachically, it's complicated. And why? Because when one person says to you that your wife was not faithful to you, you can choose what? Not to believe him. You can choose not to believe him. Because they're not you don't have to aid him. It might be that she's just a motzi shemra. Right? Everyone can come and say, look, your wife, oh, vey. You can say, I don't really care. Alternatively, the problem is if he does believe him, does he believe him like two? Or even if he believes him like one, he still needs to what? To act like he really believed him, which means he can't be with her anymore. So you're talking about what? Serious stuff. I'm not going to tell you what the Noda B'Yehuda psak. It is very, very interesting. But that's, we're talking about, sometimes too much information, as we know, it's not good. Also, just think about it. If you tell your friend, I spoke about you Lashon Hara with Moshe, and I think that Moshe is my best friend, then my perception on Moshe will be what? Oh my God, he's a terrible friend. So I can basically paint someone else in a terrible light, and basically ruining that person's relationship with someone else. I mean, we need to be very careful. And this is, I think, where it can go both ways. מה זה?
How do you do teshuva without going over it?
Exactly. But the other problem is, how can you really do tshuva, or how can you ask really forgiveness without giving all the information to the person to make the decision to forgive you? And I'm not talking about salachti, and then in your heart, you really are still upset. I'm talking about באמת full forgiveness. That's hard. So,
you can do it for the first time, and maybe after a couple of months, it seems to be going well, and then all of a sudden, boom, what was the problem before comes back to you. And what was the problem?
True. And also, sometimes, you try to minimize the information you give, but then your friends start what? Digging in, right? And then he reveal some other things that you didn't say. Meaning, it can be complicated. Okay. Yes?
Rabbi, if we come back next year, we can tell us what the number that you do that.
I'll see. So the Rif continues. Tanya, עבר אדם עבירה פעם ראשונה. מוחלין לו. שנייה מוחלין לו. שלישית אין מוחלין. שנאמר, אין כל אלה יפעל כל פעמיים 3 עם גבר. והתניה שלישית מוחלין לו, רביעית אין מוחלין לו, לא קשיא, הא ביחיד, הא בציבור. So now we have a question. The first time and the second time, if you committed a sin, God says, you know what? Moichel. Third or fourth, God says, lo mochel. And so the Gemara says, so third or fourth time. So the Gemara says, lo kashya, ha beyachid, ha betzibur. Okay? One talks about the individual, one talks about what? The public, the community. There, it's always also vague, but here it seems to be that perhaps we can say that when it comes to the individual, God, after the third time, would say what? אני לא מוחל. With ציבור, after the fourth time, ציבור בכל זאת will give them 3 times and then the fourth time will punish. Or alternatively, you can say what? Exactly the opposite. With ציבור, I have an expectation. If you do something, at least one of you needs to what? To raise his hand and say, זה לא נכון. You are doing something wrong. With yachid, he doesn't know. So maybe he needs to have the fourth time. So again, we have with the Rif 2 halachot that we can interpret them in two ways. So let's just do at least the Rambam. The Rambam in הלכות תשובה, פרק ב' הלכה ח' הווידוי שנהגו בכל ישראל, אבל אנחנו חטאנו, והוא עיקר הווידוי. עבירות שהתוודה עליהם ביום הכיפורים זה, חוזר ומתוודה עליהן ביום הכיפורים, אף על פי שהוא עומד בתשובתו. We know that the Rambam made the psak like the second opinion, which means even if you didn't do them this year, you need to confess them on them again. שנאמר, כי פשעי אני אדע וחטאתי נגדי תמיד. Which means, according to the Rambam, so the Rambam makes a psak, that you need to have a constant reminder of sins that you did, even though you did not repeat them.
But can I ask a question? You identify yourself in a stronger way within that person who did it if you keep saying it.
Again.
You identify yourself more as that person who did it because you keep saying it. But if you could let it go, you could have a new identity and not have to keep putting that in your identity.
That was the first opinion, but the Rambam did not agree with it, and the Rambam.
I'm asking a question.
Yeah, so the Rambam says no. Psychologically, it should be that you should have a constant reminder. Now you should look. Also, the constant reminder for the sins that I didn't do this year might be also not only a constant reminder of what I did, but also to what I was able to overcome. There is also some kind of an encouragement. Saying to myself, I'm going to repeat that sin again in my confession, but I didn't do it this year. Kol hakavod to me. Really. I did other sins, don't worry. But this one, I didn't do. So it shows that what? That I can overcome at least one sin a year. I mean, try not to pick up a new one, but basically is that I was able to overcome it. So yes, it can cause problems or complications, but it also can give you some kind of of encouragement. So we'll leave you like that. Next year we'll continue with Just take your the pin with you, socials or whatever, just so you will have next time.